Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Kayfabe, and this is the wrap-up edition from Wrestlecade. We're a few days late, guys. I think we needed a little bit of recovery time, but I am sitting here with Stephen P. New, Adam Harris, and Steve Barker, and we had a hell of a weekend, gentlemen.
All thanks to Steve New bankrolling, letting us be the coattail riders that we are.
Stable P New.
All access media. We had complete total Hunter S. Thompson like access to this fucking event. You're going to see probably 13, 14 videos come from this thing. Steve New also, moreover than a lot of wrestlers that were, sadly doing the sad Virgil by themselves there.
If I had $1 for every single time that I heard someone go, Stephen P. New, Stephen P. New, Stephen P. New, Stephen P. New. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I would have made more money.
You'd have a bunch of dollars.
A bunch of dollars.
Go see your ass.
Sure.
Dude, that one guy, the black dude wore the sunglasses inside, he waited. I guess, should we give away some of the interviews right now? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so Steve New is interviewing Izzy, and it's going to be one of the most adorable things that's going to be on our channel because, girl dad Steve New was just beaming over Izzy like it was his own daughter. And that dude that he had like sunglasses on all the time, he fucking waited outside of our makeshift studio for like 15, 20 minutes because he's like, I'm not leaving until I meet Stephen P. New.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, it was definitely a great weekend. We've seen a lot of people. I thought it was really cool that we were set up right across from Sergeant Slaughter. So all day long, Sergeant Slaughter was just right there.
And the Rock and Roll Express.
And Nikita Koloff.
Koloff.
Boogie Woogie Man Valiant was right beside there.
Barbarian.
They're all right there. So did you guys have any exciting interactions that other people may be interested in?
Well, I gotta say that the kickoff, I was so happy with the kickoff with Vicky Guerrero. That was a real highlight for me. That Gary had suggested to Tracy that based on ASW's relationship with Vicky and having had her in for a number of times, that I MC and that we host that and kick it off. I think that set the tone, or at least it did for me, of just how special that weekend was going to be. Going straight from Vicky's thing and then the Showcase of Champions where the ASW belt was defended. I thought it was a great night of indie wrestling, Friday night. But mixed interview with Vicky. I thought Davey Richards, got to see a side of him during the interview and the interaction with Vicky that you don't normally get to see with Davey Richards. And I thought he put himself over. And of course, Brian Myers is just a pro. He calls himself the most professional wrestler. And he was great in that Q&A with Vicky. That was a great start to the weekend, in my opinion. Friday was a lot of fun.
Now, of course,
Friday was a fantastic time, but I tell you that the big thing for me, I mean, besides Sunday, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, which was a big thing to me personally, but as a fan, the convention was the it game for me because everything was going down at the convention. I absolutely loved being a part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I wanted to backtrack real quick because what Steve New was talking about when he said Gary and Tracy, he's talking about Gary Dameron, of course, is the promoter for ASW, which was one of our partners at this show. Shout out, Gary. And then Tracy is Tracy Myers, who was the head guy in charge of all of Wrestlecade. And Steve buried the lead because he got shrieked at by Vicky Guerrero because he wasn't on the spot with the mic, and she just goes, "Do your job, Stephen P."
Yeah, she also shrieked something else at me, And I went full on Dwayne The Rock Johnson and told her she looked wonderful.
You did. You dropped that line. It was perfect.
You daggone right. She looked at me like she
perfect.
wanted to claw my eyes out, but I was letting her know I wasn't about to take any of her shit. I'll tell you that.
Now, what Brian
what's
just
crazy?
brought up, Brian brought up is something that Matt even was the guy that kind of had to remind Brian. Brian was there and he was in fucking work hustle mode because you're going to see we got some fantastic interviews coming up, and Brian was in hustle mode. And a few times Matt had to come over and be like, "Hey, Brian, like Sergeant Slaughter's over there, man. You should go fucking mark out, bro." And Brian had to be like, "Oh yeah, I love wrestling too, and I have to go watch all this stuff."
Yeah, that is 100% true. It's easy to lose yourself in your mission and forget the fact that you're in the moment, and this moment is special because you never know. There might be the last time you ever see those people. You might never get a chance. Or something. Something could happen. You always want to cherish any moment you have like that. And man,
Right.
we had some moments.
Yes.
So are we going to talk about some of the people that you got since we're on to the convention part? Are we going to talk about some of your interviews?
We got some really, really good interviews. We talked to Nick Aldis. We also talked to Sam Houston. He told us a story about being attacked by many Kamala cannibals in another country. I believe that I will leave that there. So you have to listen to the interview to get the rest of it.
Absolutely. Do yourselves a favor. I went over and got a picture with Sam Houston because Dark Side of the Ring moved me so much in that story. And I went up and I told him that. And he was so thankful. And, he professed his Christianity and, wanted to talk to me about that. And then came back and gave me a card. But the interview, do yourselves a favor. The Sam Houston interview because he's 12 years sober, still wrestling. And we got stuff from guests that I don't think anybody else gets that out of them except for the House of Kayfabe. And I mean that.
That is true. We had a great conversation with Dr. Tom.
Wow.
Dr. Tom Pritchard was there. We had a great conversation with him. But the real sleeper, we talked to some other people. Nick Aldis, great interview with Nick Aldis.
Davey Richards.
Of course, Nick Aldis,
Yep.
Nick Aldis is already, he's already been on the House of Kayfabe. But one person who stood out, and I'll be honest with you guys, when I was about to interview this man, I was like, this is going to be a quick one, in and out. We'll ask him a couple questions, and I'll be done. I did not expect, and this is my fault. I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting the type of interview that I was about to get into. But when I sat down with Curtis Hughes, Mr. Hughes, the big cat, Curtis
Total
Hughes,
protection.
Total protection, I got an incredible 56-minute interview with this man.
Me and Adam were outside and we were like, is he still talking to Mr. Hughes?
I couldn't stop talking to Mr. Hughes because Mr. Hughes was full of some incredible information. We went in detail about his time with Lex Luger. We went in detail about his time with Shane Douglas. We go in detail about when he stole the Undertaker's urn. Now, if you think about that, when he stole the Undertaker's urn, that was like the 90s version of Brock beating Undertaker at WrestleMania. You don't steal the Undertaker's urn. Curtis Hughes did. And there's he tells some stories about some racism that he's faced being in wrestling companies over the years. It was just an amazing interview. We learned about people that he had trained, and it's crazy how much information Mr. Hughes has. I'm actually planning on bringing him back to the House of Kayfabe for a sit-down interview. I'm thinking I'm going to go like 2 hours with him next time because I would like to do a full career interview with Mr. Hughes. He was that good of an interview.
Mr. Hughes came out.
Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, I'm a big Mr. Hughes fan because he was in the first match of the first event I ever went to as a kid in 1992, man. So I've always been a huge Mr. Hughes fan, and I got to announce him at ASW. So I myself cannot wait to hear the Mr. Hughes interview.
Adam, I've got to tell you, there's a gem in there for you. There's 100% a gem in there for you. And I tell you, nice. I'll give you a hint here. Clash of the Champions. The Steiner brothers versus Mr. Hughes and Big Van Vader. I'm sure you remember that clash.
Absolutely.
He goes into detail about that match in particular in the interview, and it's great. It's absolutely great. There's things you're going to learn in that interview that you never knew, and what you seen on camera was not exactly what was going on for Mr. Hughes. It's just an incredible interview. You definitely want to check that one out. And then the guys on the street, a guy on the street got Danhausen. You guys got Jimmy Boogie Woogie Valiant, Heath. There were some others too.
Rock and roll.
Who else did you guys get?
I got Rock and Roll. I got ODB. I got ODB to give me the bam at the very end of her interview.
Really cool interview with ODB.
I got kissed by the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant.
I thought that was coming from. They said, "Oh yeah, Steve got kissed." I was thinking, "Oh, ODB, nice, sweet," and then it was like, "Nope, it was Boogie Woogie Man."
When he got done, he goes,
"Tongue."
Hey, look, a gentleman doesn't talk about
doesn't tell. Good call.
Doesn't tell. But I will tell you that after he kissed me, he said, "That's some good sugar, baby."
Boogie
of course he did.
And guys,
of course he did.
There were 125 superstars down there, and I'm talking guys from Strowman, Adam Scherr, Bo Dallas. Looking like $1 million.
He looked better than
$1 million when we talked to him, Reznor.
He's never looked better than what he looked that day.
He's never looked better than he looked this weekend. And guys, just everybody from every vintage. There was Bobby Fulton, and given his struggles with cancer, I was so happy to see Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics with his brother. And there's Bill Dundee. Tell you guys that Lawler was ribbing on Bill Dundee. Lawler did a meme with Dundee side by side with George Washington, and they looked just alike. It was like the presidential photo of George Washington, and he was showing that to Boogie, and they were laughing their asses off about how much modern day Bill Dundee looks like President George Washington.
And see, that's legit heat. That's legit heat, because if you know anything about Memphis wrestling, those two truly didn't like each other.
You're right. They love each other, but they're always going to rib on each other. And Jerry Lawler still calls Jimmy handsome, and Jimmy Valiant calls Lawler fish for reasons I haven't asked Cornette yet. But 125 superstars all over that place. They said they had 8,000 people come through the convention center from Friday.
I heard
to
the
Sunday.
final number. I heard the final number was right under 10,000.
I believe it. It was so loud.
It was packed when they opened the doors at 10 on Saturday. It was like the floodgates.
Hey, the line for Sting was already lined up the entire length of the convention center and starting to loop around just to meet Sting. And our own Matt Mullins was stood in line and actually got to meet Sting, and so did Steve Barker. We are going to be able to hear Matt talk some more about that too. And I'll go ahead and give a plug. We were talking about the legends that were on hand, and one of the best things I got signed was at our table, at the ASW table, House of Kayfabe table, Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai, the city main of WrestleMania 1.
I got my
just
picture taken with those two ladies. Just so nice, so polite, and so happy that people. Wendy Richter couldn't. She told me, I can't believe people are here to see me and want to meet me. And I said, you were a part.
Shit.
How could you see you? And she said, "But I'm here to meet you." Just really, really sweet ladies. I was so glad that they were there.
Also at our table, we had Francine and Sonny. We had Davey Richards. We had Matt Hardy. So Matt Hardy was one. You could tell the big main events by the lines, right? And I met Kurt Angle. I met Sting. I got a picture autograph for my little brother because he's a huge Stank fan back in the day. And the biggest lines there, Matt Hardy at our table. That shit went. That dude made so much money, it never stopped. It was a line around the block.
That's true. You could talk a lot about the cash he brought in, but I'll just interject to say that he was the nicest individual, and he probably made, I don't even know, 700 people's lives. I can't even imagine how many people he signed for. I mean, it was ridiculous. It had to be more than 300 people.
Oh God, 300. That was in the
he
first
was great. Crazy. And Matt was wonderful, and I saw the intricacies of what he did at the table, and it was really wonderful. And I'll never forget how great he was with everybody. And he would always talk and make eye contact before going for the pin, which I thought was great. You know, before he signed anything, he was going to make sure you got that hello, where you from, and there was always a great interaction. Right. Because the people, they don't get a lot of time with these folks. You know, they wait in line much longer than they're going to be able to spend with the superstar in some cases. So the superstars understand that, and what a devotion it is from the fans. And Matt Hardy, top notch in my book, man. I was glad that he was part of the ASW table because he represented well.
Dude, his line was long. Here's a line that I thought that was a little surprising. One of the longest lines there, Thunder Rosa. She had a line, big line. Of course, Matt Cardona did.
Guys.
Yeah, Malachi Black. Malachi Black.
Yeah, they all
FTR. We're talking
FTR.
Right.
Big time.
Somebody that completely evaded me during the convention. Never once laid eyes on this person, even though I was looking for both of them. I could not find the $1 Million Man and Erwin R. Shyster to save my life. Every time I went to their table, they weren't there. I never once got to see either one of them, and I wish I would have.
Well, Ted DiBiase walked up. You were in the middle of your hour-long tryst with Mr. Hughes when Ted DiBiase was at the ASW table talking to me and Tammy and Francine.
Nice.
So had you been out at the table instead of in the back with Mr. Hughes, you would have gotten to meet the $1 Million Man, as did I.
Well, I was having an amazing conversation, so I guess I wouldn't trade that. But it was definitely a shame for me because I really wanted to meet the man. Definitely wanted to meet the man, but
Thunder Rosa was so sweet. I was just going to say Thunder Rosa was so sweet. Jordan Grace, I saw her backstage at the indie event. She wrestled Friday night. She kind of was giving me this cock and look, and I thought that was her, but like she was talking through her match and that kind of thing. I wasn't going to interrupt her and, mark out. And so the next day I said, hi. And I introduced myself. She said, I know who you are. You're Cornette's lawyer.
Yeah.
Like, she's about to clock me. And then she just started dying, laughing. She's like, you give him a message for me. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. And she's like, no, it's so nice to meet you. Such a sweet girl. And just very sweet. She's got a ton of upside, as does Thunder Rosa.
Well, I
May
met
Valentine from NWA was right down the corner from us. Yeah. And then
I got my picture taken with Jordan Grace, and I
1 year sober anniversary. Yeah.
So I got to go on with your Jim Cornette thing, me and Matt, of course, coattail riding, dropping Stephen P. New's name. And she's like, oh, yeah. And then she laughed off and she goes, Cornette, he's such a fucking asshole. And then I, of course, got my picture. I got, of course,
she told me.
Yeah, and I, of course, got my picture taken with her. And I don't want to spill the tea, but she told me some very surprising things about why she has not tried to move up. If you want to think of leaving Impact and going to another promotion, she said, I don't want to say it because it may have been told to me in confidence, but it was I'm going to tell you all offline if you are interested, but very interesting that she doesn't feel that she needs to leave Impact and go to a bigger promotion. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. Very
You know,
interesting.
before we wrap up here, I definitely want to talk about some matches that kind of stood out. On Saturday night, when I got to the arena, I walked in on Enzo and Matt Hardy, which was the semi-main. I know you guys had stayed and watched a lot more matches than I got to see that night, but the main event there with Buddy Matthews versus Malachi Black was absolutely a barn burner. Tore the absolute house down. I was sitting there thinking the entire time that some dumbass thought that those two needed to be fired. Like, it didn't make any sense to me watching this match up close and knowing that somebody was like, yeah, you can cut those guys. Makes no sense.
Were you there, Steve?
No.
Dude, this match.
No. I had already taken off for home by that point in time, but I love you guys either group texting or group messaging. One of you sent that Enzo is a genius. And listen, House of Kayfabe listeners, viewers, if you haven't seen the Enzo Amore Matt Hardy pre-match smack talking, you need to go watch that. Spacebar, how you doing?
Dude,
how you doing?
Matt Mullins isn't here. He's playing a gig, and that's all we. After we watched that for the rest of that night and all the day of Sunday, the next day, that's all we talked about was Enzo Amore and how he got completely screwed by the WWE. And I think that he is one of the most because I think he's with MLW now, but he's one of the most underutilized talents. I don't know, outside of Paul Heyman, and this may sound hyperbolic, but outside of Paul Heyman, I don't think there's anyone better on the microphone right now than Enzo.
Well, I think that's kind of ridiculous.
There's not.
To say.
Steve said there's not. There isn't. Who is it?
I think that's kind of ridiculous to say. You're talking about. Well, I mean, CM Punk, who are better than Enzo, but I will say that Enzo, when you see Enzo, all you can think is it's a tragedy that's not on national television. I will say that 100%. He should totally be on national television.
It's ridiculous.
Now, is he the best? I don't think he's Mount Rushmore, but he's great.
No, I mean, he's just so fucking entertaining.
Enzo.
That's it. That's
the
it.
Mount Rushmore.
That's all me and Matt Mullins talked about.
Enzo.
And dude, honestly, his match, it wasn't a barn burner. He's not ever going to have a 5-star match, but his work has gotten a lot better since he was with 205.
And it definitely has.
Adam can attest to this because I think he was seeing that drive show down there in cinemas last year. Wrestling had Enzo, nicest guy that you ever want to meet. Absolutely a sweetheart, nicest guy that you'd ever want to meet. There was a disabled kid who came in the movie theater where the superstars were signing, and one of Enzo's agents tried to get $20, and Enzo waved him off. He's like, no, this one's on me. This autograph picture's on me.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's very cool.
Yep.
That so another
Sunday,
match that I want to talk about. Yes, Sunday. So let me set this up because I wanted you to talk about it, Brian.
I was actually going to talk about Sunday morning first.
Oh shit!
Sunday morning we show up at the Benton Convention Center and get set up for the TNA panel. We had James Storm, Chris Harris, Bill Behrens, who is AJ Styles' manager for a very, very long time. Jeff Jarrett was on the panel. Goldilocks, Johnny Swinger, and D'Lo Brown, and we talked the early years of TNA. We took fan questions. We led the interview, and man, we got a lot of good stuff on that. That was a great panel. We had a lot of fun on Sunday morning.
Dude, let me put Brian Reznor over to the moon.
I was going to say, you did a great job, Brian.
Let me put Adam Harris over the moon. It's time to put some motherfuckers over. Adam Harris started the whole event. Of course, everyone knows that Adam's one of the, if not the best independent announcer in the game. And he expertly announced, gave good background on everything. He had such good research, so pro. And then fucking Reznor came in like a house fire, and it was so professionally done. And I think a lot of times, especially in the world of wrestling conventions, it can kind of be a little carny. Some of that stuff can kind of be done in an unprofessional fashion, but you would not know that we were a bunch of fucking hillbillies from West Virginia. That shit was smooth. Brian killed it. It was so good. Now, are we going to have that footage to be able to put up on YouTube?
Well, that would be because I'm not a hillbilly from West Virginia. I am a person who was born in West Virginia.
Ask anybody when you tell somebody you're from West Virginia, I don't care how many gold chains you got on, they're going to think you're a hillbilly, Brian.
It's silver. It's silver, and I am not a hillbilly. I will say that for sure.
Well, then, no, but you did a great job with the panel.
Yeah, it was great, man. I'm fucking.
Well, thank you very much.
Now I didn't get to watch it all. Now, Brian, are we going to be able to have that stuff's going to be on the channel?
Yes, it sure will be.
Ooh, that's a big one. That went to about 2 hours now. And Brian ended that thing with one of the best questions that's ever been asked to a TNA superstar, and that's what we like to call a tease in the business.
Yeah, well, it definitely. I know that last question that I fired off definitely got everybody on the panel's attention. And the guy who I asked the question to was kind of dumbfounded for a second and wasn't really sure how to answer it. It turns out really good. There's actually some really good questions, period, throughout the whole thing. We find out how Jeff Jarrett got Toby Keith to tell the president no and come and do a TNA show instead. There's a lot of really cool questions that were asked and a lot of really great answers. And really, we got everybody involved, and everybody was involved in the panel. I know a lot of people were saying, I've been to some of these panels and some guys never even speak. Well, we made sure we worked everybody in. Everybody got some mic time on that one. And it was a great panel. It
was a large panel. Yeah. I mean, Jeff Jarrett was there. So it was obviously like a lot of people thought he would dominate the conversation, but then we had America's Most Wanted was there, D-Lo was there, and Goldilocks, who I thought had some really great insight in the end. I could have heard a lot more from her, man.
Well, here's a question. Who the hell knew that Bill Behrens was going to be such a good storyteller? I'm so glad I asked him the questions I did, because he was really able to captivate an audience. It's definitely something that you should definitely look out for, because it's something that you'll want to see.
It was great. Now, I didn't get to watch all of it because I had to leave about an hour, and that's my next story of this whole thing. And actually, a very high point for this show. Stephen P. New, in all of his wisdom, decided it was a good idea for me to be the agent for Sonny and Francine. So I unfortunately didn't get to watch the whole podcast. So about an hour, I ducked out and had to go run the table with Francine and Sonny. Francine, I am now the biggest Francine mark that exists. I'm pretty sure we're best friends now. We're probably going to do like Tupperware parties together later. We talked for the whole hour, and either she's the best worker to ever work and make someone feel like she actually cares to talk about you. Now, me and her found out that we had a lot of things in common, so that kind of helped. And man, we talked about family and kids and, domestic shit. And she's the best. And Sonny was there as well. Francine is definitely going to come on our show. She said that she wants to be on our show. What about
Sonny?
Sonny, she has blonde hair.
Is she wonderful?
She has blonde hair. She was in a black dress.
The fans were all excited to meet her.
Yes.
I know I was when I met Sonny at Wrestlecade. I felt like I was 10 years old again, and because I met her when I was 10, and then I got to meet her again when I'm 38. It's a very nostalgic moment.
Did you meet her at Smoky Mountain Wrestling?
I did.
Wow, that's awesome. I saw her back then. I didn't meet her.
She was managing Candido and Brian Lee.
Yeah, nice.
When they were the tag champs.
Steve, you got to unmute.
I said she's very well behaved that weekend. Tammy.
Oh, yeah, yes. I got
She
screamed
was.
at
Yeah, so
because
anyway.
I got yelled at by her because she couldn't figure out if she wanted the white tabletop or the black tabletop, and I was like,
I
I'll get
told
you whatever
Gary
you want,
this,
ma'am.
and I meant it. I told Gary Dameron this. I'll take anxious Tammy over self-medicating Tammy any day of the week.
For sure, for sure.
There you go.
Yeah,
there
For
you
sure.
go.
And man, dude, if Stephen P. New is not, if Cody fucking Rose of Brandy has a stupid reality show, if you cannot sell a Francine Sunny reality show, then I don't know what to do with you, Steve New. Because like when I left, because I just watched them interacting. Because Francine is like, I don't want to say her age, but she's a mature lady, and the queen of extreme has turned into like mom, like PTA mom, and
Right.
she is
Right.
very mom like to Sunny, and Sunny is very childlike
Has
to
never grown up.
Francine. Not at all.
There you go.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
there you go.
watched her hit Francine with the Disney princess voice. So they were, while they were waiting to get autographs, they were booking a dual Disney show or Disney trip. And it's something they do apparently every year, which would make a great episode that Stephen
Yep.
P. New is going to sell to somebody. And dude, Tammy was trying to add on like I don't know, massages or like
Right.
spa shit, and Francine was like, "No, like that's money. I got kids. Like she went Heath, and she was like, I got kids, and I want to spend that money on that." And Tammy does like but really, it would be really nice if we got massages together. And I called her out. Because by that time, I was kind of sick of her shit. And I was like, did you just Disney Princess Francine and bat your eyes at her? And she was like, yeah, that's how I get what I want.
So after your situation with Sonny and Francine, there was an all women's event that was pretty good, pretty exciting. Got to see Thunder Rosa compete during that. After that, we had the day after, and I seen a lot of the day after and some highlights of the day after. I'll start with Tim versus Too Cold Scorpio. This match, because I know how much of an influence Too Cold Scorpio and Tim, formerly Tim, also known as Timothy Bumpers. Timothy Bumpers used to compete in Superior Championship Wrestling, and he was a little heavier at the time, but was still absolutely incredible. Now he looks like $1 million, and he's at top capacity when it comes to talent. Seeing him go one-on-one with Too Cold Scorpio was just it just fit. It was like a story told.
Too Cold still got it too, man. He still did some aerials.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, for sure. 56-year-old man, and he can still go. Everybody was with the still go. You still got it. Chance were everywhere. That was a great match, and I know that it meant a lot for Tim to get the win over Too Cold Scorpio at Wrestlecade. Tim was Mr. Wrestlecade. Did you notice that his entire attire was just for Wrestlecade?
Pretty fantastic gear, man. It looked awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to
good stuff. So
I was going to say, now I want to interview you, Brian, because this is where we saw splits of tastes of wrestling matches. Because Brian Reznor fucking was as high on a match. You could tell that Brian Reznor was in his element because George South, for whatever fucking reason, and
Colby Carino,
Steve Carino's little boy, had a fucking hardcore match, and I left. I went outside, and when I came back in, when I was finally over, Brian Reznor was post-coitus.
I was definitely happy. First of all, seeing George South in that match was just unheard of. I don't know if any of you know. I know Steve knows George. George hates hardcore wrestling. George despises all of that. He talks against any type of hardcore wrestling whatsoever, just like anybody his age would. But he, instead of being against it that night for the fans, George South not only did a hardcore match, but did it to death. This guy wrapped himself in barbed wire, put himself through light tubes. I mean, anything that could have happened. All we didn't see was fire. That's the only thing we didn't see.
I'm like you, Reznor. I did not see this coming from George South, and I've seen George South on the indie scene before, and it's usually the same thing, and it's perfect. It works every time, but it is what it is, which is him talking, having a semi-technical wrestling match, and then probably getting over in a heel manner, and then going back to his table to sell some more gimmicks, Yep. And he can get the entire crowd to hate him. And then he'll still hand out a few versions of the New Testament before they leave. So I did not see this hardcore thing coming, but yet he did it George South style, which was every move that he did in a hardcore fashion made sense in a wrestling way. You mentioned he wrapped himself in barbed wire, which required some, cooperation from the referee. It is what it is. But he wrapped himself in barbed wire and then ran into the corner, and that wasn't good enough to do it. And then he wrapped his entire arm all the way up to his shoulder in barbed wire and applied his sleeper hold, which he's at least executed in tons of matches over the years. I don't think he necessarily won any, but he did the barbed wire sleeper, and then he wrapped him around his shoulders and did the airplane spin. And I remember, Brian, you and I both popped for the airplane spin with the barbed wire on back. So for that, it all made sense to me, and he eventually picked up the win. Wrapping his hand in barbed wire and applying the claw.
That was the finish.
It was incredible, and everything made sense in a George South kind of way.
You walked out the big table bump. He took a bump through a table.
That's right. It
was actually not. It wasn't a table. It was a door that was wrapped in barbed wire
with
and
barbed
draped
wire
over.
attached to it.
Yes, and he went right through the door that was covered in barbed wire. It was unexpected, and as a student of the school of ECW, I was very pleased. George South reminded me of a Terry Funk, and I loved it. I absolutely loved that match.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't there on Sunday. I was being a good dad and a good husband. It's like the closest thing real life you'll ever see to Randy from the closest thing you'll see to Randy the Ram from the cinematic masterpiece, The Wrestler. It was pitiful. George South is better than that. I don't know why he did it. So you can add to the list of his titles, Born Again Christian, Best Jobber Ever, and now he's an Outlaw Mud Show guy.
Well, I didn't watch it because I was out.
An Outlaw Mud Show extreme match.
Okay, so I didn't see it because I was out in the lobby with all of the children that parents took out of the match. So I was outside with like a bunch of 7 to 15-year-old kids whose moms was like, I am not letting my kid see this fucking bullshit.
Rightfully so.
I can't imagine being, and excuse me if I offend anyone, but I can't imagine being a wrestling fan with my kids at a wrestling show and saying, okay, kids, let's walk out into the lobby because you can't watch this. And I'm sure they get to watch, Jason murder people in movies, and they get to watch John Wick, kick everybody's ass and shoot everybody in the head.
Not necessarily. Not mine don't.
No.
Mine don't. You got to get some age on you before you can watch that. Dude, I have an 18-year-old, but I don't want to watch Rick and Morty.
That's exactly right. I mean, parenting is a very subjective thing. And I know parents that let their children watch age-inappropriate stuff all the time or play age-inappropriate video games, and some people think that doesn't matter. in their ultimate development and how they turn out in life. And others of us do believe that that matters to their development of their little miniature brains that aren't fully developed until they're 25 years old.
Well, I mean, like, there was one time when they got done, and again, I'm glad that Brian got to enjoy it, because that's another thing about this was like, at Wrestlecade gave you everything. It gave you fucking all
there was something
genres.
for everybody.
There was something for everybody, and I was glad that Brian got to love it, because he was fucking. I've not seen Brian that happy after that fucking match. But to what Steve's point was, there was a kid, because I came in, I was like, I fucking hate this shit, and Brian was like, that was fucking awesome. So like, to bring up to the point with the kid. There was a kid right first row, and there was blood smeared on the barrier. So before they could start the next match, some ring dude had to come out and spray Clorox, because that's why make sure the blood's not dangerous. If you've ever seen Boondock Saints, and then and wipe that shit off, and was wiping blood away from like a 9-year-old that was like a few here to it. So yeah, I think I'm getting soft in my old age now that I'm a dad, baby. But like, I don't know.
See, when I hear you talk about this, all I hear is boo, motherfucking who. Like, watch that damn shit. That was awesome. You guys are crazy. Anyway, the main event was even better. Davey Richards versus Caprice Coleman was unbelievable.
This was my favorite match of the night. Now, Malachi and Buddy was great, but for me, it was great because Brian got to see the kind of fucking match that he loves about wrestling, and then like 2 matches later, I got to see everything that I like about wrestling as a Davey Richards match. I got to meet him, got to hang out with him a little bit. I actually bought a shirt from him, and man, for me, Caprice Coleman. Did you watch that match, Steve?
He was home.
I wasn't there on Sunday.
I thought maybe you watch it on pay-per-view, maybe.
No, Brian, did you see Davey's match Friday night against Axton Lowe?
I sure did.
Oh, yeah.
I sure did.
And if his match against Caprice Coleman, who is fantastic,
way better,
was if it was nearly as good as his match against Axton Lowe was, it was a fantastic match.
Well, and as Davey, he said,
you can just go.
As he said on the Vicky Guerrero podcast back in ROH, I think he said they could count on us to always have a good match. He's like, the American Wolves didn't have a bad match. And it's true of Davey Richards right now, apparently.
To be honest with you, the match on Friday night was good. It was very good. But the match on Sunday night was fantastic. It made you ask the same questions that you got with Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black. Is like, why aren't these guys on national television? It just doesn't make sense. I've always known that. I mean, of course, Davey Richards is the man. We all know that. And I've always known Caprice Coleman was good, but together they were like peanut butter and jelly, baby. It was great.
Everything that I like about wrestling.
And in fairness, Davey is on MLW. Unfortunately, MLW doesn't have a national TV deal yet, so I hope Court Bauer keeps working on that.
Absolutely, because I want to see him. Well. I want to see him again. Go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to try to throw in one more match that I enjoyed that I'm not sure who was there for, but earlier on Sunday in the all-women's girls' night out that they had, which was actually in the afternoon, we saw Thunder Rosa, saw a ton of great female talent, but Jordan Grace and Kieran Hogan had a babyface versus babyface match that was incredible. And I really had a moment there. We had wrapped up that TNA panel earlier, completely exhausted at this point, but still loving being engulfed and just seeing that match, getting the crowd behind it, and somebody shouted, "Who am I supposed to cheer for?" And then part of the other side of the audience started going, "Both these girls, both these girls, both these girls," and they had an amazing match, and Jordan Grace came out on top, and that was one of my favorites of the weekend, man. That was definitely one of my favorite matches.
Okay, so that's really how I want to finish this segment, is to go through one by one and get your single one best moment of Wrestlecade. I'll start with you, Adam Harris. The best moment of Wrestlecade for you was what?
Oh man, I could go on about many things, but I think I just said it actually. I mean, I really peaked, I think, at that afternoon on Sunday with that match between Jordan Grace and Kira Hogan. Two underappreciated people, I think, who are both doing really great in their roles right now on Impact. People I thought I didn't necessarily think I would ever get to see in person, right? I don't know if I'll get to go to an Impact show. And they had one hell of a match. And if I were a booker or a promoter in any neck of the country, I would try to book those two. I would try to get them on my promotion and have a main event my next card.
All right, Stephen Barker, what was your favorite moment of the entire weekend?
Man, that's so hard. God, man, I'm honest, dude. If Francine and her husband lived close, me and the wife, we'd all go to Applebee's. Like she was so fun to talk to. That was great. I met Sting. I met one of my all-time heroes on my Mount Rushmore. I met fucking Kurt Angle. But I have two. One was watching one of my oldest friends interview Danhausen. Watching Adam Harris like a boss interview Danhausen was 1A, and 1B was being kissed by the Boogie Woogie Man.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Nice. It was definitely with tongue then. All right, so Stephen P. New, what was your favorite moment of the weekend?
Having my car keys thrown in a trash can.
That story! Oh my God! You gotta tell that story.
I'm just teasing. My favorite moment of Wrestlecade weekend has nothing to do with any in-ring. In fact, this guy hasn't been in a wrestling ring in 35 years. My favorite moment of Wrestlecade was being recognized by Magnum TA as he was wheeling through in his modified chair and telling me that he came to the ASW House of Kayfabe table to find me and Gary and tell us how much he enjoys coming to West Virginia, how much he enjoys our promotion, and he sought me out. And I never in a million years thought that Magnum TA, that Terry Allen would ever come at a wrestling show looking for Steve New to say thanks and have me up to West Virginia anytime you can get me up there. I love coming up and being with you guys. And it was a quiet moment and, just something kind of between me and him, and he spoke to Gary, but that was my favorite moment of the whole weekend.
That's great.
Well, I would have to say that my favorite moment was being able to be on a microphone, having basically a conversation with Jeff Jarrett, being able to converse back and forth with Jeff Jarrett right there, talking about the early years of TNA, was definitely the highlight of my weekend. Yes, there were other people involved in that conversation, but to me, it was just me and Jeff Jarrett with some bystanders, because I definitely wanted to have that conversation with Jeff Jarrett, and that stands out to me as the highlight of my weekend.
It was so surreal.
Well, and of course, I guess my second would be hanging out with all of you fuckers.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
That was
sure,
the first time that we've we've now been a podcast for a year and a half, about like there, Brian.
Yep.
And that is the first time that we've all been in the same room. Now, of course, we had two unfortunate, people got left behind, brother Derek and brother Rich Quick, who hopefully will be there next year. But it was the first time we all got to hang out. Like, I didn't know that Brian Reznor is fucking huge. Like, I bet like he's a gigantic man. He's like white Suge Knight, dude. He rolled in.
I knew as soon as I heard his voice, he was huge.
Like, who's this big bastard? Yeah. Oh my God.
And guys, listen, on a serious
I've never heard
tip,
that before.
On a serious tip, we took a great crew down there. We had Brian Logan and Eric Lester and
other guys.
Kenny, and and then we had Gary's crew. Josh and Nikki and
Dustin Alexander,
Dustin Dent, and some other folks. We had a great crew down there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think our presence there, I just want to say thank you and hats off to all the people that came down as part of our kind of combined crews that were really, really showing up. And look, we take a backseat to nowhere. We take a back to nobody. I don't care who it was doing interviews. We had as good a table with as good a talent as any other vendor down there. And it was really good for a bunch of rednecks from West Virginia. We put on a pretty doggone good show ourselves.
Once again, disclaimer to the folks listening at home: Brian Reznor does not subscribe to the redneck or hillbilly talk that happens here on the House of Kayfabe. I am not a hillbilly or a redneck. I am just a guy who happens to be born in West Virginia.
Where are you from, Mr. Reznor?
I was born and raised in West Virginia, but that does not mean that I am a redneck or a hillbilly. And with that being said, we have went long enough here and we have kind of recapped Wrestlecade, but we could be here for 14 hours and not be able to tell you all of the things that went down at Wrestlecade. You're just going to have to join us next year at Wrestlecade 2022, and we'll have more information about that as the year unfolds. Thank you for joining us here on the House of Kayfabe. Make sure to click subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we need you to do that. And we need you to tell everybody to click subscribe because we need more subscribers. So give us those subscribers, and we will give you more content. There is a lot of videos coming in December. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back right here on the House of Kayfabe.